Welcome back, people. Today, we're going to take a look at a composition from Georgian chess composer Gia Nadareishvili. Take a look at the position in front of you. It's white's turn to move and win the game. So, the challenge here is that your king is trapped and he can't move an inch. So you need to find a way to checkmate with only these 3 pawns. So, can you do it? Obviously, you can't start with this move, pawn to h7, because black is simply going to take the pawn. And it would be an easy draw for black. So instead, we're going to start with f6. And now, black has 3 possible moves. You got f7, f8, and h8 over here. If he chooses to move to f7, we push the h-pawn. And the black king is nicely blocked in, and he can't stop the promotion next turn. The same thing happens with f8 as well. So, black's best defense is going to be king to h8. White pushes to f7, and black moves to h7, which is the only legal move in his position. Alright, so that was the easy part, but this is where the puzzle gets a little bit tricky. Because if you rush and promote to a queen, you're actually going to just end the game in a stalemate. In this situation here, white's winning move is actually to underpromote to a rook. So, once we promote to the rook, black is going to take on h6, and we can play rook to f5, defending our pawn. So, is that all? Is this really the answer to this puzzle? We just promote to the pawn, and using the rook and the queen, we can deliver a clean checkmate? Well, you already know that I wouldn't be showing you this puzzle if it were that easy. So, your plan is indeed to promote your other pawn, but the actual question is, can you promote your other pawn? Black moves to h7, and we move the rook to f6, slowly driving the king to the edge of the board. Black then moves to g7, and here we need to keep the rook on the 6th rank and not let him get any closer to our pawn. So the black king moves to h7, we move our pawn to h6. See, now black is forced to move to g8. Now again, we're going to bring the rook to the 7th rank and not let the king come close. Pretty easy so far, right? But now it starts to get just a little bit more complicated. After king to g8 from black, you can't play pawn to h7 check, because black is going to move to h8, and you're forced to move the rook on a different rank because black is going to force a stalemate. So, rook to a8, black captures our pawn. And now what? You can't win in this position. You just give random checks without any actual purpose. Now once again, in this position, we really shouldn't be rushing things. We need to stop and ask ourselves, how am I going to promote my pawn? Because the enemy king is just going to keep shuffling between g8 and h8. Now, after you find the answer to that question, you really need to make a plan of attack and put it into action. So, did you find the answer to that question? Well, I'll tell you the plan. It's to bring the rook behind our pawn and then push it. Because even if the enemy king is just going to shuffle between those 2 squares, he can't just do that endlessly. Now, as I said, we need to bring the rook behind our pawn, so we're going to start with rook to a5. Black king moves to h7, rook to h5. Now, even if black is going to move to g6 and try to attack our rook, we're going to be more than happy to give up the rook in order to get a queen with the pawn promotion. Now, why is that, you might ask? It's because in our last scenario, with only the rook, we saw that we can't make any progress and the game ended in a draw. But because of the queen's ability to also attack on the diagonals, this is actually going to be a winning position for white. So, we got our queen, but how do we actually checkmate black without the king? Let me know in the comments if you already know the answer. Alright, but the answer is, you can't. No matter how hard you try, because in this position, it's impossible to do it. So, again, ask yourself, how can we win the game here? If so far we haven't paid any attention to the other pieces on the board and only focused on the pawns, now we're going to need to take a closer look because the answer lies in the pieces' positioning. Alright, now step back for a second. Take a look at the board. Do you see it? Take a look at this diamond-shaped formation on black. You know something a little bit different here? We see that the g4 pawn is defending this h3 bishop. Also, we can see that we have a g pawn that would freely promote if it were allowed to move. So, pretty straightforward. We need to exchange our queen for the bishop, and black is forced to take back. After that, we simply push the pawn, and we make a new queen. It's pretty easy, right? So, we need the perfect setup for this, because if we just start our plan now and take the bishop, black takes, and the pawn is going to be stopped by black the next turn. So, we need a situation where we make sure that the black king is not able to catch our pawn, and only after we secure that can we sacrifice our queen. Do you remember our video about opposition where we talked about the box rule? The enemy king can't catch our pawn if he isn't inside the box. So using that rule, we're going to know where the king should be in order for us to win the game. Let's review that rule once again. Starting from your pawn, you count the squares until promotion. So here, in this scenario, we've got 5 squares. Now, we draw a 5 square line on the file and the rank and make a square. This is the box. And if the enemy king is inside of it, or if he steps on the line, he would be able to stop our pawn from promoting. Now, we can see that the A file and the first 2 ranks are outside the box. So, the opponent's king should be there, right? That is actually incorrect. I said that the enemy king must be outside the box and he can't touch it with his next move. If he would be on the A file or the second rank, even if he's outside the box, he would be able to touch the lines with his next move. So, the only place that the king should be in order for us to win is the first file, and we will use our queen to drive it there. This is why this endgame is a win, and the endgame where we had our rook was a draw, because of the queen's ability to push the enemy king onto the first file. But even so, you need the right technique to be able to force the king to the first rank. You can't just go g7 check and h7 because black is just going to repeat the move and he's going to end in a 3-fold repetition draw. As I said, after king h5, we're not going to go to h7. Instead, we're just going to make a waiting move, a1. King moves to g5, we move our queen to h8. Black to g6, our queen to e5, and we take away the 5th rank. Now, we need to put the queen on the h file, and from there, we're slowly going to guide the enemy king to his death. Black moves to h6, we move to f5. Black to g7, we move to h5. Black king moves on over to g8, queen to h6, and we see that the only available squares are f7, h7. King to f8, queen to g6. Black again is forced to e7, and we just repeat the process. We move to g7, black king to e8. Queen to f6, black to d7. Queen to e5, black to d8. We move to e6, black to c7. And because we want black to be on the first file, we're going to move our queen to e8, taking away black's possibility to retreat to the 8th rank. So black then moves to b7. We move to d8. Black to c6. Now that black is on the 6th rank, we bring our queen to the 7th rank. And we're going to keep this pattern until the enemy king is on the 1st rank. Black to b6, we move to d7. Black to a6, we move to c7. And once more, black is forced to go down with b5. Has the enemy king reached the 5th rank? Well, we go down a rank as well, queen to d6. Black to a5, queen to c6. And this pattern, again, is going to continue until the enemy king reaches the b1 square. Now that we've successfully brought the king all the way to where we wanted him, we can safely trade the queen for the bishop and win the game. We move our queen to h8, king moves to c2. And now after the trade, we push the pawn to g4, and we can see from our box that black is not able to step inside of it the next turn, meaning we can safely promote now. And this position is very easy to win as white. We're just going to collect black's remaining pawns, and it's good game. This was a pretty cool puzzle, and I bet you didn't expect it to be so much more work when at first it seemed like a really easy endgame. Thanks a lot for staying until the end. We'll see you next time.